Off. Well, welcome to our second talk with an external speaker. We're going to have Ria N2RJ, who's been licensed since 1997 in Trinidad and Tobago, and in the United States since 2001. She became first interested in radio at 5 years old from her dad, an avid SWL shortwave listener, and learned about ham radio from a teacher, Mr. Tony Lee Mack, 9 Yankee 4 Alpha Lima. Rhea is active in amateur radio contesting in digital modes. She is also the District 2 chair of the Young Ladies Radio League and a director of ARRL, National Association for Amateur Radio. Ray is the alumni of the NYU Tandon School of Engineering, where she studied electrical engineering and attained her BSEE. Professionally, Rhea works with Unix and Linux systems, engineering, and renewable energy and energy storage. Boy, that sounds cool. So take it away, Rhea. I'm going to make it so that you can share. I'm going to stop sharing and set it up so that you can share when you are ready.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you can see me. Good evening, everybody. I'm Ria. My call sign is N2RJ, and I'm an amateur radio operator. And today I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk about, I titled this presentation, Friends, Steam, and a Lifelong Journey, Amateur Radio Passion, Pursuit, and Lifestyle. So basically, I'm just going to talk about, it's not going to be like a rigid presentation where I just, death by PowerPoint, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about, what I view about amateur radio, what I've seen, and what I enjoy about amateur radio, of course. And I'm going to talk about a one thing where I encountered some challenges with amateur radio and how I ended up, getting through it. So just being real here. So I was licensed in I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. I grew up there. And if those of you who don't know where Trinidad and Tobago is, it's the most southern island of the Caribbean. So basically is right off the coast of South America, right off near Venezuela. And the country is typically known not so much for tourism as the other Caribbean countries are, but they're known more like industry, oil and gas, and also now they're trying to get into technology a little more, information technology. And in Trinidad and Tobago, I actually did a fair bit of work with technology. I started off working at computer stores, working on computers, and then I eventually got a job as a programmer analyst at an insurance company. I was quite young, actually. I was like 19. And I worked for Fujitsu for a while in the Caribbean, working on Unix systems and installing servers and all that kind of stuff. And then I got the opportunity to come to the States because we applied for green cards and visas back in the 1980s, and the US government decided in 1999 to approve them. So it's quite a long time. They take a long time. So anyway, I got licensed in 1997 at the encouragement of a teacher, and in high school. So I always am I'm a big advocate for teachers and people who are, in that educational sphere. Let me just wipe my camera a little bit. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, that's better. Yeah. And I got licensed in 2001 in the US, and I'll explain the challenge I had with that in a little bit. I went to New York University Tandon School of Engineering, it was called Polytechnic University at that time, and then just as I graduated. They kind of merged with NYU back again. So, they're a fantastic school in Brooklyn. They're pretty nice. In 2019, I became a director for the ARRL. In 2020, I became a director for the ARRL Foundation, which deals with scholarships and grants. And in 2018, I became a chairwoman for and a member of the board of the Young Ladies Radio League. So, for those of you who don't know, the ARRL is the National Association for Amateur Radio. They basically are advocates for amateur radio operators and the amateur radio hobby. We go before the FCC, and we try to petition them on behalf of amateur radio operators. We also do a number of other different things. We have learning, we have contests, we have awards programs, and we also advocate on behalf of members and and radio amateurs in general. ARRL Foundation is different. ARRL Foundation is a separate organization that's closely aligned to the ARRL that deals with scholarships and grants only. They've actually been working with ARDC, who is a sponsor of this program, as well too, and ARDC has been kind enough to work with the ARRL Foundation to supply some generous scholarships and grant money. Young Ladies Radio League is an organization for women in amateur radio, and we truly mean all women in amateur radio. They're inclusive organization, and they're very close knit. And I'll show you some pictures of what we did in terms of like conventions and stuff like that. But we basically have like on-air nets where we talk to other ladies. We also have other activities like contests, and we also have a scholarship program too. So that's good that we could encourage women who are amateur radio operators to get scholarships to pursue their education. And it doesn't always have to be a technical field. It could be anything else. It could be medicine, it could be nursing, it could be, geology, something else. Once you're a radio operator, you could take advantage of that. What I do professionally, I write software. I write software, Unix and Linux, and I do a lot of automation and security. And I worked, I'm on LinkedIn, so I did a lot of work with different companies. Right now I work in the financial industry. I also work with a number of different, I worked in insurance, I worked in media. So I've been around the world in Unix. I also recently have a kind of a consulting gig with, I don't know if you guys heard of a company called EcoFlow. So they make batteries, they make portable power stations, they make all sorts of different little things for battery and energy and solar. And I've been kind of working with them on engineering and designing some of those, because I am a double E after all. I also like to fly drones. I don't have a drone here with me, but I am a Part 107 certified, remote pilot. So that's fancy speak of saying that the FAA allows me to fly drones for profit. So I might fly a drone to take pictures of buildings, rooftops, and also to take thermal images of solar farms and stuff like that. So a lot of interesting things. I've actually been showing some students about drones in relation to drones as an application of radio. So there have been, a lot of different applications for radio that you could do too. So drones are it. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a small YouTuber. I have a channel called Ria Shack Ham Radio, and I publish videos about ham radio and other things like laptops and tech and computers and even the batteries and such like that. But I mostly focus on radio and wireless communication. And I love wireless communications. As a matter of fact, I was so excited to do this project. I was actually down at the Green Bank Telescope a few years ago. because every radio amateur has to make the pilgrimage down there to see that gigantic antenna and the others too. I learned a few things. We had a scientist, Maureen was her name. I forgot her last name, but she basically showed us why you can't bring digital cameras near the telescope, and she showed us also, um, balloons and the kids. I have 3 kids. They were very curious about that too. I do a radio show about ham radio. It's not a big radio show. It's called Ria Shack Radio. It's on WRMI shortwave radio. I also have it on the podcast. So wherever you get your favorite podcast. So Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And wherever you get your favorite podcast, you can get. I do a lot of social media. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm all over the place. I attend trade shows. I was at the Consumer Electronics Show. So I get around. The clubs. I'm in a good few radio clubs because ARRL encourages me to be active in clubs, and I'll explain these clubs. I'm, of course, a member of the ARRL because I think radio amateurs should be members of ARRL. ARRL helps keep amateur radio alive and growing in the United States, and ARRL is a voice to the FCC. So I'm definitely a member of ARRL and proudly a member of ARRL. I'm a life member of ARRL, meaning that I'm a member until I no longer I'm alive, basically. I'm also a Diamond Club member, which means I contribute a little more above my dues. So I'm I'm on top of my regular membership. I'm also a member of the Radio Society of Great Britain because I have a license in the UK, and I also work for a British company. So no, I have ties to the UK. I joined the RSGB. I'm a member of the Young Ladies Radio League, YLRL, which is like I said, a ladies amateur radio organization. I'm a member of a local club called the Sussex County Amateur Radio Club. I live in a place called Sussex County, New Jersey, I live in a town called Wantage in Sussex County. But when you live out where I am, where it's kind of rural, you just kind of drop things down to the county level. So it's in Northwest New Jersey. If you look at a map of New Jersey and you look at the extreme Northwest, it's Sussex County. I'm a member of Fairlawn Amateur Radio Club, which is a club that's further away, but they do a lot of interesting things, so I decided to join them. I joined the Frankfurt Radio Club to do contesting because I love contests. I joined the North Jersey DX Association, which deals with DX, and DX is an activity where you contact many different countries and you try to make a contact with them. I'm also a member of Rio DX Group in Brazil because they're a group of interesting hams. What has amateur radio done for me? Well, it's very easy to say what they have done in terms of what have they done in terms of sparking technical curiosity, but I'll tell you, it's more than just tech. But I really enjoy being a technically curious person, meaning that I always enjoy, being curious about things. You'll see on my YouTube channel, I try to explore the why things are. I might build something. I might, take apart something. I love to do tear downs of devices and such like that, and upgrades and, just tinkering. So ham radio kind of brought that to me. There are a lot of people in tech. There are a lot of people in high tech. There are a lot of people in various, technology careers that are ham radio operators, and they'll help you along. So that's done a lot of great things. I've networked with a lot of great people in amateur radio. A greater understanding of technology, wireless, and electronics. So the university, my alma mater, NYU Engineering, they have a big facility now that deals with wireless. They actually developed some of the foundational technologies for 5G. So if you have one of these, these things. This is an iPhone 14 Pro Max, which has 5G, and it has the 5G ultra wideband, which and also the ability to use something called millimeter wave. Some of that technology was developed at NYU Tandon, and the professor who developed that is Ted Rappaport and 9NB. And Dr. Rappaport really, he kind of did the impossible with some of this millimeter wave technology. So ham radio will do that for you. Ham radio has, kept me going with tech because frankly, just a lot of time I get on the radio and I talk to people, we talk about this stuff. But other things, it expands my knowledge of geography. So I'll give you a story. One time I was on the radio and not talking on the radio, like I use a computer program called PSK31, which basically it allows you to chat on the radio, right? Not quite like Discord or something like that, but basically you're sending like text, just scrolling across the screen, and then you stop transmitting and the other person could send text to you. And it's kind of like you do that to talk to people. I sent out a general call, what we call a CQ, and a CQ call is where you basically just send a call out to people to say, well, anybody out there, I want to talk to you. Okay. So I seek you. Okay. And I was sending CQ, and then I saw this call. So my call sign is N2RJ. You always send your call sign, right? Like how in real life you send your name, you tell people, say, my name is Ria, right? And then you always tell, and then person will tell you, well, my name is Dave, or my name is Janice, or something like that, right? So I send my call sign, say, CQ, this is N2RJ. And then I got a call sign back from a guy, ZD8I. I'm like, ZD8I, where's that from? And sometimes you make a call and you never know who's going to come back to you. So there was this guy, he was, I said, where is that? He said, that's in Ascension Island. So Ascension Island is like a remote island out in the Atlantic Ocean, right? And it's a really, really remote island, but he was there with the Royal Air Force, and the BBC had a relay station down there. So the BBC radio has a station there, and he was there. And then I made contact with him, and I was thrilled because I've never talked to anybody, on there before. There was another person I made contact with was on a remote island called Bouvet Island, and Bouvet Island is way down near Antarctica. And you talk to people all over. You have people you regularly converse with. I regularly talk to people in Europe, in Africa, in Australia, and all those countries. So, and I know you can do that on the internet, but the thing is, there's something magical about doing this without having to rely on the internet. And then you get in touch with other cultures. Like I know. I didn't know a lot about other cultures, even though I'm kind of, so my whole cultural makeup is that I am from Trinidad and Tobago. My family's ancestry is from India, I believe they might be from, I don't even know exactly where, but I have a lot of origins in North India. And my family, we share a lot of the old traditions. But, I learned a lot about other traditions. I have a very good friend who is in Hyderabad, India now, and her name is Bharati, and her call sign is VU2RBI. And she has taught me a lot about what they do in that part of India. And I learned about all these little countries in Europe and principalities like Monaco and Liechtenstein and stuff like that. So, you do that. And, you gain this community of friendship. Like some of these people might fly over here for amateur radio conferences. You talk with them on the air, and then they come and you meet them, and you sit down and you have dinner with them, and you talk about radio, but you talk about other things. My friend Karsten from Germany is one of the friends I met in on the radio, and he enjoys some of the same things I do, which is contesting and DXing. But I saw him. He has a real humanitarian thing he did. He went and he drove from Germany across Poland to Ukraine to deliver food for them. So it was very wonderful what he did there, and I had the chance to meet him, and I did an interview with him on my radio show. So you gain community, and there's something magic about amateur radio that does that. So I want to relay a little a story of a challenge, and let me stop the share because I just want to talk about it free form basically. So I'm an immigrant to the United States, and I'm lucky in that I had all my documentation and everything. I realize that some people are undocumented immigrants, and some people are, like me, who have the privilege to be with a green card and stuff like that. But when I arrived in the United States, I had my green card. I didn't have a social security number because that came sometime after. I went to the to a local radio club to take an exam, and I was filling out the forms, and I told him, I say, well, what's this part that says taxpayer ID number on it? What do I put there? And they said, oh, you put your social security number. I'm like, well, I just arrived here. I don't have a social security number. And I say, well, sorry, you can't sit the exam. I'm like, what? They're saying, yeah, you need a social security number. So that wasn't even true because I read the exam manual and it said that people who didn't have a social security number could just write the word foreign and they would be able to take the exam. But you want to know something? I complained to the ARRL at that time, and they kind of didn't really know what to do about it. But in the mail a few weeks later, I got my social security number. I went and I took the exam. I was a little upset about the whole thing because I felt that I might have been discriminated against. People might have looked at the color of my skin and probably my accent at that time and figured, well, yeah, this person, we don't want to serve them. But I overcame that, and I did work on becoming an examiner myself. So I'm an accredited examiner with a few organizations, and whenever that issue has come up, I made sure that we address it properly. And now, of course, that's a moot point because the FCC actually requires you to pre-register online, and then you don't have to put if you don't have a social security number, you don't have to put that online, and you just get a number and you go to them. So that was my story of challenge and how I overcame it. There's a lot of other things. I mean, sometimes I got bullied for a few things and then I had to stand up for myself. But you know what? You just be strong. The world is a big place. How I pay it forward. So I love paying it forward. I really enjoy this community of amateur radio, and I work especially with kids and such like that, because I have my own kids too. But also I enjoy seeing the joy in children when they do this. And I'm going to talk mostly about pictures here because I'll show you some pictures. So this here is a local charter school I was working with. This is the Sussex County Charter School for Technology, and they are they're a middle school. They're located in a town called Sparta, New Jersey, and Sparta is in Sussex County. What they do is, and they have, they're a very wonderful school. They take open applications, and they look for students who have promise for learning technology, some who might be underprivileged, some who might be, BIPOC, some might be LGBTQ, because they're very affirming of those things as well too. And I really, I'm really glad that something like that exists in my community. And they do a lot of science too. like they did this thing called a space station contact. So I don't know if you guys heard about this. You probably heard about this, but the amateur radio allows you to talk to astronauts on the space station directly. And what they do is they organize a school contact where the school would talk to the astronauts. So we did this with the charter school, and you can see here some of the crew here. You have a ground control, so to speak. So you have on the left here, you have my friend Kelly, and Kelly is from the Sussex County Club. In the middle, you have Vince. Vince is a good friend of mine. And the one on the right is also Vince, and he was his wife teaches in the school. So his name is Mr. Vince DiCaprio, and his wife is Mrs. Mary Lou DiCaprio. And Mrs. DiCaprio basically has a ham radio club there. And I go and I help them out with a lot of things. And they have their call sign KD2YAQ. So we did the space station contact. So I helped them out with that. Here, I want to show you a short video. I wonder if it'll play, where we have, what I did was I worked with ICOM, which is a radio manufacturer, to get them an ICOM 7300. An ICOM 7300 is basically an HF radio. It's a radio that allows you to make contacts across the world and or even across the country. And the club has this, and they're using this to make contacts, and they got an antenna outside and they're having fun. So let's see how this goes. Okay. All right, Chase Johnson, 12. Okay. Fun things to do. Okay. Let's talk about fun things to do. Let's see here. Okay, so this here is an interesting thing. I actually go to my friend Andrea K2EZ and we go to we do this thing called roving, where we have like a truck. It's not a storm chasing truck, right? It's basically a truck full of antennas. And this truck and radios, what we do is we try to contact, we drive around to different places and try to contact different radio amateurs on different places. So we were up in Alpine, New Jersey, and we stopped by a side of the road, and we got out and we started calling other stations and making contact with them. And this was a pretty interesting thing, because sometimes, so the way radio amateurs do is we divide up the world into different grid squares, right? And this basically where we stopped was on the boundary of a grid square. So this means that we could make contact with either one grid square or the other. So you have me here in the truck. Well, Andrea was there in the truck and I was outside just posing by it to take a picture, and we make contacts with points. That's one of the things we do. So this is part of contesting, where you actually make a lot of contacts that way. Here we stopped off at the ARRL. How do you know when you're on a grid square? Thank you for the awesome question. So there is a map, right? Let me show you the map. So grid squares. There is a map called the Maidenhead grid squares, right? Maidenhead grid square. And it divides up the Earth. I want to show one with more than just the United States, because the world is more than just the United States, right? Well, I'll show you the one with the US, because that's the easiest one. But anyway, so the Earth is divided up into, oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, let me see if I could share this now. Let me stop sharing this. Yeah. So you notice.
There you go. Perfect.
Right. So you notice this here. You see like some big grid squares. So like you find out, and I'm going to annotate this now. So you notice here, I'm around I guess, FN, in FN, right? But as you go deeper into FN, you'll add a number at the end. So I'll be like FN21, which is like a smaller square. And you keep going in. So what we do is we have like big squares that divide up the whole world, right? According to this map. And then we divide this down into smaller and smaller squares. So that's how you know. But there are easy ways to find out what square you're on. And we have, of course, GPS. And there are software apps that'll tell you, let's see here, grid square. So basically, I have an app on my smartphone that tells me what grid square I'm on. And I hope you can see this, but it's probably, yeah, there we go. You see? So it tells me, well, right now I'm on FN20 grid square. So you can use an app, and the app will basically get your position information from satellites, from GPS, GLONASS, or whatever GNSS satellite system, and it will then calculate your grid square based on that. So, yeah, there's a whole way we could talk. I hope that answered your question, Kimberly. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's, Jesse, you're on mute.
Oh yeah, there I am. I was just going to quickly say that ARRL has I think there's a whole section of the site that allows you to set up, to find your grids and that kind of thing. You can just enter your address, or if you have a ham license, you can enter your call sign. It will give you your grid square, which is kind of handy, which I use frequently.
Yeah, so if you call somebody, and there's a website called qrz.com or QRZ, where you look up somebody here. So I'm here, and you go into their detail page, and you'll see their grid square. See?
Perfect.
Yeah. Grid square map. Is there ARRL grid squares? Right? And then they have web links. This calculator by Dave K2DSL. So Dave is a local radio amateur. Like, let's say I want to see, let me see, where is it? Let's see. Since we're with the NRAO, Greenbank, West Virginia, what is their grid square? They are FM08 CK, right? So, yeah. And then see, you have that whole grid square there. So, it's you divide up the Earth into squares, into rectangles, and then you further subdivide that into small. Okay. Awesome. Okay. That was a nice little off ramp there. Okay, let's get back to let's see. Oh yeah. So here I am with Andrea in front of the ARRL headquarters here in a truck. We stopped off after a contest. After the contest, we were roving. Pretty neat. This is my friend Jay's radio station. Jay, unfortunately, passed away due to cancer. But Jay and I, Jay, his call sign is K2TTT. Jay allowed us to run the contest at his station. So we would go to his house, we operate his radios, and we play here. And here I am operating in an awkward that I was probably listening for somebody at Jay's station. And you have a friend right there at the side of me, another friend. I think that was Al. Al was on the radio. And Jay was a nice guy. He was a really nice guy. Like, he would make breakfast for us and bring it down, fried eggs and he'd bacon and he'd bring it down. That was so amazing. But yeah, unfortunately, Jay passed away, cancer. The friends you make. So this is the Young Ladies Radio League, our convention we had in 2018, I believe it was. And you could see here, a lot of different ladies in amateur radio. Okay. And like I said, we're very welcoming. Okay. We don't discriminate against anybody. As long as you identify as a woman, we are 100%, with you, and you are welcome as one of us. So if you do become an amateur radio operator and you are a woman, you can join us here. So here I am. There. Here you are. This is Nancy here. Nancy is a NASA research scientist. She does a lot of cool stuff. I think she does like material science and such like that. Her call sign's KC8IYD. You have here my friend here. This is Carol Lafferty. Her call sign is K4SAF. She's from Kentucky. You have Andrea K2EZ, the one with the rover truck. And you have here Anne KC9YL. And Anne is a school teacher. I think she was a school teacher. I'm not sure. You have a lot of teachers and such like that. But we had a really nice time with fellowship. We got together. We programmed radios together. I taught these ladies things about programming radios and stuff together. And we really had a great time. And this was in Oklahoma City. I think the next one, I don't know where the next one is going to be, but it'll be fun. I know, even if you're not a member at YLRL. Oh yeah. And then you have Dr. KP4MD is her call sign. And she's a doctor in Puerto Rico for a long time. She was really, well, she is. She's also the section manager for Los Angeles, I think it is, in California. But anyway, no, Sacramento, up there in Northern California. But she is Carol Milazzo, Dr. Carol Milazzo, and she's very nice. Very nice person. Good friend of mine too. Trying to get back to the presentation here. Oof. Okay. Sorry about that. Let me see here. Little TD, technical difficulty. Okay. All right. Okie dokie. All right. This is another friend I made here. So this is my friend from Germany. She is a big contester, and she is Sandy Raker, and she is from Germany. I believe she might be, I don't know if she still is, but she's a police officer in Germany. And but she comes to the States often to basically play in the amateur radio contest. So, she's a very interesting person. She's very good at especially Morse code, Yes. So and that's it. So yes, so this is a good question about what sparked my interest in ham radio. So let me talk about that for a minute. So a long time ago, there are several things that brought me into amateur radio. Okay. One of them is that my dad was a shortwave listener, and we listened to a lot of different radio, different radio stations. Like, for example, we'd listen to the BBC World Service was one of them. We also listened to the Voice of America, and, being Indian origin, we also listened to All India Radio, and All India Radio would bring us like Indian music and stuff like that. So that caught my interest in that. And then in school, I kind of figured, well, we're looking at extracurriculars and stuff like that. And then I got introduced to amateur radio by a teacher. But his whole thing that intrigued me about radio is he showed us the commercially built radios that you buy in the store. Okay, that really didn't pique my interest. Is when he showed me the one that looked like, he cobbled it together, and he had like tubes sticking out, and on a piece of metal, sheet metal, and he said, "Don't touch that because you'll get shocked." Okay, so he turned it on. He had a light bulb, and he tuned it up until the light bulb got brighter. And I was so intrigued. I said, "You built that?" And he said, "Yeah." So I was very intrigued. So what he would do is he would bring like photocopied articles from the magazines, or he would actually sometimes go in the library, look at the magazine, and then like sketch a circuit diagram, and he'd bring it, and then he'd bring some parts, and we'd build it. The students would build it. So that really sparked my interest. And then when I was, in my final senior year in high school, I said, "You know what? I'm going for my ham radio license." But in Trinidad and Tobago, it's not as easy as in the United States, and this is one thing I'm very thankful for in the United States, that we have a relatively not really difficult process to get amateur radio license. In Trinidad and Tobago, we had the exams twice per year. It was 100. No, it was in our currency, it was $600 to sit the exam. And yeah, that was a lot of money, right? So I saved up a lot of money to get that. I also taught two other students. So we had to study together, and we all passed. But yeah, that was my motivation. My motivation was I got 100% got a teacher, but it was a number of different things. It was shortwave listening. We had a Commodore 64 computer as well too. It was listening to all of that old DX. It was listening to people, and it was building things. I really enjoyed building things. And then especially in Trinidad and Tobago, I could tell you a story about how for years we only had one TV station. We had Trinidad and Tobago television on Channel 2. Well, eventually the government decided, they didn't decide. They were kind of told that in order to borrow money from the IMF and the World Bank, they had to open up the media. They couldn't have the government control all the media. So they eventually had other TV stations come together, and the TV stations then were on different channels. Like one of them was on Channel 6. So I asked my ham radio teacher, I said, "So we have a TV antenna for Channel 2, but we don't get the reception on Channel 6 so good. What should I do?" And then he sketched up a diagram for an antenna, right? And then we went home and built it. Me and my cousins, we cut up. There was a piece of the utility workers had left some aluminum wire, right? They just cut it and let it fall to the ground. We took that and we fashioned that into a TV antenna, and that worked well, and it was pretty good. So that's that kind of like, it's various bits and pieces together that got me finally pushed into amateur radio. But yeah, it was mostly about making and building things, and also getting an interest. I know in 1990 we had a very tragic event where we had a group of radicals who came and went into Parliament and took the Prime Minister hostage, and we lost all the government controlled media because they also took over the TV stations. The only thing we had to hear was shortwave, and the ham radio operators, they were able to talk outside the country. I was surprised they weren't shut down, but that was interesting. So it was all those. So basically a combination of school teachers, technical curiosity, and other stuff. I hope that answers your question. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. Leonie Anderson?
Leonie?
Leonie. Okay.
Oh,
Okay. Thank you. I don't want to mispronounce people's name. People call me, people mispronounce my name. Right. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed telling that story. So let me see what else I got left here.
and
I do
certainly,
have-
if you're open to answering questions, more questions.
Yeah.
sure. Good
I
time.
love questions.
Excellent.
And here are my friends here. We were having dinner at all the YouTubers having dinner at Orlando. right? Right? We're there having dinner with all the YouTubers. So the key
Was that
takeaways from
Hamcation?
yeah, that was at Hamcation. So this was a private dinner with all the YouTubers and ARRL, a few ARRL staff. You know, at Hamcation. That was Hamcation last year. So yeah. So other little stories I could tell. 9/11, we had 9/11, we had ham radio in full force. We I served, we do emergency communications, and emergency communications is one of the things you do in amateur radio. You serve and help your community. So because the World Trade Center was destroyed, a lot of our telephones stopped working. I ended up going at a shelter and emergency shelter and worked there. Um, and I listened to a lot of things too. A lot of amateur radios listening, and I hear, especially now, my friends in Ukraine, they don't have any they're banned from amateur radio, but some of them still do get on the air, and it's nice to, I guess, the loneliness, but more with the shortwave broadcast. I broadcast on shortwave and send messages to them. They listen. So well, that was pretty much my story in amateur radio. I really enjoy, telling things about my experience in amateur radio. And amateur radio is more than just technology. It is technology, but it's an interesting mix of technology, a social aspect, service to community, and also learning, just plain learning. And you're not only learning about technology, you learn about a lot of different things. So,
True that. True that.
yeah. If anybody
Yeah.
has any questions about anything, I'm not shy. Yeah.
This is your chance, folks.
Yeah. And of course, you're more than welcome to drop me an email as well too. So I'll just put that in. But
Oh,
I
good.
want you to I want to give people the opportunity to ask questions. But of course, if they want to ask questions via email, that's fine too. Yeah. So
Any other questions, folks?
yeah. I will say this, there are elements in ham radio who are, like society in general. They're kind of like, they would be discriminatory and all that stuff. But at the same time, I find that there are a lot of people who are welcoming and open, because radio is what brings us together.
Right. Yeah.
Kimberly asked me what kind of content is on your YouTube channel. So on my YouTube channel, I talk about amateur radio. I talk about other types of radio communication. I talk about various learning things. I teach people different topics amateur radio. I showed people about a cheap $60 laptop. Okay. So a cheap $60 Windows 10 laptop that they could use. I showed people how to open it up and modify it to increase their hard drive space. I showed people about various amateur radio FCC regulations. But I try to keep it, mostly about amateur radio and tech. I have another channel I'm starting about solar power and renewable.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. But mostly my channel's about learning ham radio, shortwave listening, GMRS radio. So GMRS is another licensed radio service but it's not really for hobby. It's more or less just like, people use it for utility purposes. But yeah, I teach all about amateur radio on my channel. Yeah, have a look. If you have any ideas for topics, you could send them ria@n2rj.com.
Yep. Oh, there's more questions.
Is there any way to find what grid square you're in without a device? You could look at a map. Yeah. You can look at a map. So there are grid square maps that you could download. And if you ever go, so this is I want to pronounce the name. Is it Najan Nijan? Yes, okay, Nijan. Right. Is there a way to find what grid square you're in without a device? Yes, you could get a map. So, like I said, so for amateur radio operators, mostly we're not concerned about getting down to the very granular, smallest grid square. Mostly we're concerned about 4-digit grid squares, right? And 4-digit grid squares are pretty large, like they cover like a pretty large metropolitan area. So, how you would do that is you could look at your location on a map, you know, what town and city you're in, and then you could look at the grid square map and it'll tell you where you are. If you go to like a ham fest or something like that, ICOM, if you look at their booth, they usually have like these, they hand out these grid square charts, and then of the United States, right? There are other maps that are made for other parts of the world and stuff like that that tell you. But yeah, but you know, at some point when you're in your amateur radio career, well, not career, when you know, well, when you've been in this a while, okay, you kind of learn which neighborhoods are in different grid squares. Like I know that, you know, where I am right now is at FN20, right? And the house, another house I'm at usually is FN21. If I go to New York City, it's FN31, you know? So, but yeah, generally you look at a map, that's like the old fashioned way. Another question from Aaron McDonald. What video editing software? So they said, what video editing software do you use for YouTube? Are there any tips you'd give for communicating technical topics over video? Okay, so yeah, this is a really good question. So unfortunately, I use Adobe Premiere Pro, which is, it costs money, but that doesn't mean that you have to buy that particular software. There is a free one called DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is free, and I know a lot of people, I know how to use it, right? I use it for a lot of things. So DaVinci Resolve, I use that sometimes. Are there any tips you would give for communicating technical topics over video? Yes. So I'll tell you this. On YouTube, beginner topics are very, very popular. And what you can do is you can go and you can do your beginner topics. Like, you know, you could start off with beginner topics that you get comfortable with, and you find your voice and you speak out on it. So, you know, if you walk into complex material, you might find yourself kind of stumbling, but you start with simple stuff and then you go on further. If you're interested in science communication, yeah. So yeah. Other tips I would say is lighting. So I kind of broke that rule tonight, but I'll show you the difference. If you put a light on your video, this is what you look like. Okay, you look a lot better with light, right? And if you have no light, you look, but light makes all the difference. Get light and sound, right? You don't have to spend a lot of money. These lights are like $20. You know, you get one of these and you put it on a camera, and that camera could be your phone. The other thing is sound. Get a microphone. You know, you don't have to get a super expensive mic, like a $20 microphone that you could plug into your camera or your phone. Works really well, and that helps a lot. And then, you know, just relax. You know, relax and try to present the topic in a, you know, in a good manner. And you know, the thing is, when you start out, you're gonna sound awkward and awful, but just keep plugging on. You'll get better. You know, I my first few videos, I sounded really awful, and I had no light. Yeah.
Oh, there's more. Okay, good.
You're welcome, Aaron. Okay.
More questions? But he's quiet and shy today.
Hey, no, well, you know what? That's probably good too. They probably don't feel shy. You can ask any question you want. Anything, literally anything you want. I'm here to, let's see here. So I'll tell you the other thing about YouTube too that I like is that you gain friends on YouTube too, and that kind of helps you with getting, and you do collaboration. And unfortunately, a lot of people try to get you to sell stuff for them, but I just ignore them. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, that light works good.
Yeah. $20 from B&H. I really love it. It's a really, really nice piece of kit. Yeah. Yeah. I have like 3 of them. I use that for some other things. But yeah, so it's good for video calls, it's good for YouTube. Yeah. And I'm actually using this microphone to talk into.
Oh, it's one of those Rhodes, right?
No, it's Audio Technica.
Audio Technica. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So,
it does give good sound quality. Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, these students are like, they're part of, they're doing a project here and remotely, or are they like gathering or something like that?
Remotely, right?
Okay.
Right now, remotely, via we're gathering on Zoom and on Discord. So
that's good.
Yep. So I've got Discord in the other screen, just watching to see if there's any other alerts or things like that. But that's pretty much it for now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to. I still have. I have an agenda, folks, and I guess I don't know if I've mentioned this to the students yet, but I want to get everyone on the air together. And we're kind of spread out all over the country. There's some folks in New Mexico. There's some folks in Atlanta. There are folks in, I think there's 1 or 2 folks near, people near in Pennsylvania. And I'm here near the nation's capital. And I think there's 1 person in Virginia, 1 or 2 people in Virginia. So we're spread out. My agenda is I want to get everyone together on the air in a net, and still try to figure out how to do that. The easiest thing looks like echolink.org, and use that. But I'd like to get more RF involved than just Wi-Fi on the other end. So this is something we've been thinking about. Go ahead. Any ideas?
No. Well, that's probably not a bad idea. I'm always so one thing I want to show you guys too that I do a lot of. So this phone here connects to my radio, right? And I actually get on the radio this way. So I connect to my thing here, and then I'm able to, I hope it works. Yeah. And then so I go here. Let's see now. And let me see here. Lower side.
Roger. Nobody in my family's ever lived.
This is the radio.
Nice. Oh, that is so cool.
So it connects over Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, so the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just going to ask: is the radio on your Wi-Fi network, or is it acting as an access point itself?
So the radio is actually connected to my router, and I can either access it locally on Wi-Fi in a house, or I can access it over the internet. So yeah, I know. Yeah, listen, Nijan.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Nijan, they were saying that the conversation was bizarre. Yes, sometimes you hear bizarre things.
I am bizarre, yes, definitely. But let me explain. Let me see if I can explain a little bit, right? So most of the time we access Wi-Fi through an access point. in our houses, right? Some devices can pretend to be access points, so you can connect directly to them, just like you would in your house.
Right.
Basically, it makes its own network.
Mhm.
But so that's really what I was asking in my very confusing and circuitous fashion.
Yeah, no. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, but no, this one actually. So the radio itself is a Flex 6700 radio.
Oh, nice. Those are cool.
So for those who don't know, the Flex is basically it's a radio, but it's built around a computer. So they have like computer hardware in it, and it has like a Ethernet jack, like a regular Ethernet plug, right? And I plug that into my router. And yeah, I know some device like my printer has its own Wi-Fi hotspot. Or the which one has? I think I have a Google Home speaker that has its own Wi-Fi access point. But yeah, this one actually is it just connects to your home Wi-Fi and you connect it that way. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's yeah, and you're pretty much yeah.
If I may, I just wanted to
Yes.
share what it looks like.
Yeah, it's not cheap. But I actually have another portable one called an ICOM 705 that I could take hiking. Yeah.
Yeah, we've spoken before about, as I'm losing my voice, we've spoken about POTA and Parks on the Air. And so that's it sounds like a great rig for activations and that kind of thing, which is something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I've shifted towards QRP in my interest. QRP means low power transmitter. Okay, so we're about. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, and so you hear all sorts of different languages on the air, by the way, but mostly when people are transmitting toward the United States, they speak English. But you do hear some Spanish. I hear Italian, Russian, Ukrainian. So
Yeah. Well, we're about a minute over. Do you have anything any other last words that you'd like to give?
Well, I like to say, if you do want to reach out, you can reach out Ria at n2rj.com, and I will, be happy to answer any question about amateur radio. We do have, a number of different things in amateur radio that would be suitable. It's not just talking on the radio. It's about digital communications, weak signal communications. Famous astrophysicist Joe Taylor developed some software to do weak signal communication. So, and I think he was at Green Bank for some time too.
Oh, interesting. I'll see if I can contact you.
Yeah, but he was he actually, well, he's long retired. He was he's from Princeton, but he won a Nobel Prize for discovering binary pulsars, and that was at Arecibo in Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, but he's a ham radio operator. Very brilliant guy.
Okay, I did not know that. Yeah, Arecibo. Unfortunately, we lost Arecibo a few years ago. That's something for you all to look up. Well, let's see. Again, thank you so much, Ria, for coming out and talking with us. Really appreciate it. I know we're over. Any other questions from the young folks? Okay, if not, I'll say thanks again. And
if you want,
go for
thank you. And if we could make the contact on Echolink, I can send you all a QSL card.
Oh, that is so cool. All right. You heard it. All right. Thank you so much again. Take good care. 7
or even if
everyone.
If you want a QSL for this, even if you want a QSL for this, I could send one out.
Oh, there you go, folks. You're building up your collection. That is something great. Okay, folks. Take care.
Thank you and have a great day. 73.